And good morning and welcome to the most electrifying show in sports entertainment with 2 hours of sports excellence. We'll hear some from the camp over at Jackson Christian School that's going on. Registration started at 9, and there's already, Bud said, looks like 100 campers over there. We're going to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly very quickly. The good was Trey Smith Day yesterday. Very successful, and we'll have some comments about Trey, and we'll have him on this show later in the year. The bad yesterday, I don't often go to the NFL, or actually NBA in this case, 28-point comeback loss that the Celtics had. They let the Nets, minus their two-star players who've been traded, come back and beat them last night, and the ugly was the weather yesterday. Of course, you recognize Jimmy and Bill Hamilton. And Bill, one quick sports story, then we're going to let Jimmy give the scores and tell you about Girls State Division II tournament. Started Thursday, but the finals are today.
You know, Joe, it's one of the things that we talk about is Trey Smith, a very successful career in high school, college, and produced at the level that very few people in America will be able to see, and that's a championship ring from the NFL Super Bowl. I think one of the big things is we'll talk about it, Division II, with they call them the web feet, the monsters of the Midway, so to speak. But we had a successful, I think everybody, Jimmy and I were walking in talking, very little participation, it looks like, from the local teams in Jackson. But the Haywood Tomcats, they continue from the years of Tony Delk and all the great coaches that they've had. So still a lot of sports going on, SEC women's tournament and all, but looking forward to today's show.
I tell you what, I talked about it. It's time to punch your ticket to Murfreesboro. The girls play tonight. Local teams, Southside will be hosting Murfreesboro Central. McKenzie hosts Huntland. Westview hosts Summertown. Trenton Peabody travels to Middle College in Memphis. Riverside goes to Memphis Hillcrest. Dyer County's at Fayette Ware. Manassas at South Scotts Hill, and Melrose will go to Dyersburg. And then Monday night in boys action, Union City goes to Giles County. South Gibson goes to MLK Prep in Memphis. Murfreesboro Central comes to Chester County. Fairview will be at Gibson County. Moore County's at McKenzie. Fayette Ware, Haywood County in boys action. That should be a barn burner. BT Washington out of Memphis goes to Middleton to take on the Tigers, who've only lost one game this year. Humboldt goes to MASC in Memphis. Bolivar will be at Power Central in Memphis. And Ridgeway will be hosting Ripley. So we've got several West Tennessee teams with a chance to punch their ticket to Murfreesboro beginning tonight with the girls and Monday with the boys.
And we have the text line. I've been reminded, you heard the ding. Moose has done it finally. He got through YouTube and all that and sent me a reminder that I haven't given the text number, 731-343-9929. You'll see it on our screen. It reminds you that this show is going to be great. Sean Sparks back with us. He's got so much to talk about. I'm not sure we can get it in 20 minutes, but we have to because at the top of the hour, trivia. And I know Bill is loaded with trivia.
Well, I've got a question. I found a question that's non-sports. Nobody will answer it. The next one, which will be for the pig, we call it the Pig Daddy down there with Davy Clifton and his nephews and son and et cetera. What is that you call it, the little baby roundabout?
The mini roundabout. Best barbecue in town.
Yeah, and they've got the chickens and they wrap them and they're quick. I mean, the cars are out to the street, but it's worth the wait. Joe, a lot of things going on in sports and just glad to be a part of it.
Absolutely. And, of course, Bud Young will be calling in. He is at the camp, actually. Bud's like a roving reporter. Dave McCulley, the Diamond one himself, Bethel, TCA. He knows sports, especially New York Yankees. No, I won't be playing New York today because YouTube and Facebook. And we remind you, you can get it on the BallGame Blitz Facebook as well as YouTube. Spread the word on that. A lot of people don't know that this show is on both of them. But Sean will be here, the trivia with prizes and some news. And, of course, Steve Beverly. Now, you've seen Steve. He's been the head of the news department. BBJ was a professor of broadcasting for years, but he has been the voice on the television broadcast of Union University for years. And he's really kind of the sounding board for the Union broadcast, but he also does TCA Sports. Greg Van Story was scheduled to be here, but with the weather, and he is still in North Carolina and could not call us this morning. The special guest, and this is the one you want to talk about, call friends and tell them that they can listen on the BallGame Blitz YouTube page, and you go to the March the 4th broadcast. It's live, will be archived, but Johnny Jones, the first 1,000-yard rusher in UT, but better than that, he is from, what is it, Dave says, Mumford.
Is that the Cougars?
Yeah, the Cougars. Yes. In Munford, Tennessee. Johnny Jones, he'll be with us. He wore 33 and 24, I believe, Jim, was the two numbers he wore. Most of his pictures are in 33. Yeah. And he's going to be a great one. Paul's always got those great graphics and things like that for you. Very quickly, some headlines. Nelson Smotherman, longtime Murfreesboro area, but TSSAA Sports, his story. He is the man. He was 89 years old, passed away this week. And, of course, we've told you about the state tournament and things like that. You got sub-state, and Jimmy and all of us are going to join in. They still want to call them sectionals.
No.
And I've got a sectional story or two, and you see me kind of roll my eyes. The TSSAA one time had some goofy ideas about how the sub-state was supposed to be played.
Can we ask Diamond about the NAIA? I understand that they're having their breakaways. They don't bring the 64 teams into one location. I'd like to – is that just a money pit is what it amounts to, just like you said, the sub-state?
It's probably the way of saving the NAIA tournament. You know, they're down to one division. You know you're talking
I didn't know that.
The temporary voice of Freed Hardeman, Ray Pack, out of the area, and I'm going to do 3 games for them down there. Hopefully they get to play in 2 of those games, because they win the first one, get to play in the second one, and then win that one, they go on. Only a site of 16. Remember, they used to bring 32.
32, yeah.
Well, where do you know, when you talk about it, you make a bid on it, a monetary bid is the way you secure those positions.
That and you have to be one of the participating teams, I believe, is the way it works out. So there'll be teams that will come in to Freed. There'll be 4 of them, and you play 2 games the first night. The 2 winners will play on Wednesday night. So 2-game series, Tuesday and Wednesday night.
Let me ask you a question. Is a squirrel in town today? I'm just
that's what we're going to ask Bud. Bud
should know.
So
Bud is catching a bus from the front parking lot to the back parking lot.
Well, he won't even be down there to the field. We'll have to call it 9. You got a 9:30 position open?
No, he's calling it 9:50.
He won't ever make it.
I'll tell you what, I saw the most unusual thing last night in basketball. A game postponed for 45 minutes due to rain.
You're talking about the game in Texas?
No, this was in the SEC tournament.
Oh, well, you know it. There was one that had hail actually come in to the place, and they had to hold it up. I've got a note.
Yeah, but Chester County, Joe. Chester County had to move the game from Chester County. They moved it to Freed Hardeman to finish it. I've never heard of that.
No, but they had a weather delay. Had a severe thunderstorms came through Greenville, South Carolina. And there was actually water coming through in the gymnasium. That game between LSU and Georgia postponed for 45 minutes. Just about 2 minutes before halftime. They finished the first half. They had a shortened halftime, about 10 minutes instead of the usual break, and then came back and finished it. And then last night, the Lady Vols took care of Kentucky in a close ball game. But the semifinals today, South Carolina takes on Ole Miss. LSU takes on Tennessee. I'm seeing possibly 7 teams from the SEC make the NCAA tournament. The 4 teams playing today will get there. I think Georgia's in. I think there's a shot Arkansas might get in, but that's about it as far as on the women's side. And final day of men's regular basketball today in the SEC. Big game between Tennessee and Auburn. Be played at the loveliest village on the plain in Auburn, and Auburn could be fighting for a bid for the NCAA tournament.
Jimmy, you didn't mention about 81 miles away at 11 o'clock tomorrow morning, the number 1 team in America comes in to FedEx Forum, a sold-out FedEx Forum.
Yes,
Penny and the men will take on number 1, and I'll tell you here, the Tigers will beat number 1. Houston tomorrow morning.
Book it.
If that happens, that will solidify Memphis' position in the tournament. Possibly could move them up a seed or so. So You know, a lot of exciting college basketball going on this week and next week, and the men's tournament, SEC tournament in Nashville, Tennessee, beginning on Wednesday. And if it's as fun as this women's tournament has been, should be a lot of excitement in Nashville next week.
And some topics before we go to the phone line that are coming up. They want us to talk about rules day, everything from the 30-second rule for shot clock going in high school to quarters in men's basketball in college to there's not as many people. There's people happy about these new baseball rules, but the purist, and Jimmy, I would consider a purist. Bill, you're closer than I am because I love the designated hitter, but I hate seeing 2-1 ball games. I know a lot of people like to see those pitching duels. We get enough of those even with the
late Billy Scrivener said a good pitcher. We sat down there and watched the Jackson Generals. He said a good pitcher will beat good hitting every time, and I've watched it. Spring training out there. Steven's not involved in it this year. He's moved into the Parks and Recreation, but I'm telling you, you don't see the explosion anymore. You don't see the McGuires. It doesn't appear, and I tell you, you talk about that, and you talk about NIL. I want to ask Johnny Jones, how much money do you think Johnny would have been paid during his career with the NIL that he was shortchanged? Is he going to ask for back pay since he didn't get it, Joe?
That's right. Now, let's go out very quickly. We've got lots of other topics to talk about, too. UT, I've got a bone, and the guy I think that's on the phone, I think he's got a little bone to pick with UT's playing in women, and they're not playing so well, and if he's like me, and I think I know him pretty well, I got a little bone to pick with our coach. There was some coaching errors. Bud, is that you?
Yeah, it's me. I'm out here at the Jackson Christian, the UT football legends camp today. Out here watching. I've already met with Chris and Jabari Davis, and we'll look like a big turnout out here today. Maybe a couple of hundred people.
Wow. Well, they always have one of the bigger camps at Jackson Christian School, and Darby Palmer and his staff will be there with them. But what about Squirrel White, Joe Milton, or any of those guys?
I haven't seen. They said they're coming, and Trey Smith. They said they'll all be here. I've just not seen them yet.
So Trey will be there. And
what I was told by Chris told me he'd be here, and then a couple of us said he'd be here, and I reckon they're all going to be here. And they may be here now. They're just not in view because Joe Milton ain't hard to figure out.
Now I've got a text here that came in on my phone. They want to know if you're signing autographs while you're there today.
I'm signing autographs.
Yeah, if you're signing autographs.
No, somebody done put the X down where I was going to put my name, so somebody done beat me to it on the paper.
Bud, what have you got? Go ahead, Bud.
There's big turnout here, and it's good. And I told them I'm going to try to help them get one in Savannah and Cleveland, Tennessee, and a couple other places. I know high school coaches, maybe Bolivar, because this is a good thing to get these kids some recognition, let them get to meet some great Tennessee football players and meet some former legends of the University of Tennessee.
Yeah, they get some good instruction there, and, sometimes the talk that they give them, now they get great fundamental instruction, but those guys are very helpful. But we hated last night Chris's seminar, which would have been great. You were going to drive up for it. I was coming over to it. It had to get canceled because we had, like y'all did down in Hardin County, a lot of weather problems, and electricity was being restored for about a 16-hour period yesterday.
We didn't have electricity. It blew trees down across the medical supply buildings in Savannah across the road. We had lots of trees down it. I had a gazebo on my deck, and they destroyed it. It tied it like a pretzel.
But let's talk about baseball. I watched a little bit of national news, and they said Tennessee, your coach is back. He wasn't suspended again by talking to some players. But I tell you what, they're for real, are they not?
Yeah, they're not giving up no runs. They decided they're going to shut out everybody for the season, it looks like. That's starting now. They're just going to shut out everybody. And Henry's back at shortstop. Well, the guy that had playing shortstop was playing outstanding. They're going to have to find a place to put him somewhere.
Yep. But I've heard reports that this suspension of Vitello, directly him taking that 3-game suspension, and for lo and behold, the next thing you know, the shortstop is eligible the next day. Was that something the NCAA kind of made a compromise with him that if he set out those 3 games that they would go ahead and let this guy play?
That's what I heard, and that smells like rotted fish to hold that over somebody's head to do that. what the grounds, they didn't have no grounds for suspending him no way. The story I was told, but they like to hang stuff over Tennessee's head, but they let Alabama kill or murder whatever they want to, and they get rewarded for that.
Yeah,
they'll get rewarded for having their boys as part of the murder. They'll be probably a #1 seed.
But the thing that bothers me about this situation is the fact that this guy has been in school at Tennessee since last April. And it took until the opening game of the season for them to decide he's not going to be eligible to play. Something's bad wrong with the NCAA with a situation like that.
Well, I don't think we're going to be a part of that problem. In about 2 more years is what I'm hearing. The NCAA can do whatever they want to, but and I've been told by the people on the inside, we're not. If they try to offer us suspension on the Jeremy Pruitt stuff, other than taking it.
That's a story. That's the story I'm hearing. That if the NCAA says something about trying to tie Tennessee with Pruitt, that they're going to tell the NCAA go.
But can they do it, Jimmy?
Yes, I think at this point the NCAA is so lacking in control of these schools that I think a major school like Tennessee and Alabama, a Southern Cal, Ohio State. They can basically tell the NCAA, go jump in the lake.
When we get the SEC Power Conference, I was told in a couple of years, they're going to drop completely out of the NCAA. And this probably may be 2026 or 27. But that's what I was told. We're just going to tell the NCAA, take your toys and get out of our yard.
But I mean, when you talk about doing that, then you've got to talk about the money in relationship to CBS's contract or TBS's contract, but I guess they could come back as the power conference. I hear on the street the discussions now are trying to set up this super conference, and your number 3 that you're going to be able to play, Bud. Is that really important? Who the 3 people that are going to be on your schedule for the future?
Well, I tell you what, they're giving it. We're going to get it. Tennessee can't complain about that because I'm hearing we're going to get Alabama, which we wouldn't even play a season. We'd get them every year, and Vanderbilt and Kentucky.
Well, that's
Alabama's going to get.
Yeah, I heard
LSU, Auburn, and Tennessee.
Wow.
I mean, that ain't really fair. And Texas A&M is going to get LSU, Oklahoma, and Texas.
Boy.
Yeah.
Who do they make mad? Stanky?
I don't know. I guess. How would you like to have every year that you're 3 games, plus you're going to be having to play other conference games. If you're Oklahoma to play Texas A&M, and LSU, the ones they got, how would you like to have that every year?
You better sign a big NIL contract.
Yeah.
Every year.
And playing a 9-game SEC schedule with those is 3 of them locked in. Plus,
that's right.
That's
Georgia. This thing, what if you had them 3 and then you had to play Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, or somebody else? There's 6 teams that could be in the top 10.
And that's every year, too. That's every year.
The Bud, while we've got you on, we'll let you we've already had 3 texts, and one of them says, and we mentioned this, if they add a shot clock to high school basketball, then they need to change men's college basketball to have 4 periods instead of 2. And the sender of that question doesn't have names, and I had a little different setup when I was using a Pinger text line, but we've got a Jetpack text line here. And what do you think about that? And then we want to get Jimmy and Bill's opinion. Do you think they should add the shot clock to high school, and should they change men's basketball to 4 quarters? They're the only basketball sport with 2 halves.
Well, they might could go to the college may go to 4 quarters. I wouldn't have no problem with that. But the high school going to a shot clock, that's going to involve some more people. We have enough trouble getting referees now to games. We've had a bunch of games this year. We had 70-year-old referees.
Yeah.
We got 70-year-old people, and you can't tell me that their skills are not a little bit hindered. I'm 60, and mine have.
Yeah, but they don't get down the court, Bud. They're making calls from mid-court on a slam dunk. I mean, they're like 2 days late.
They're at the free throw line at one end making calls on the goal on the other one.
And they're wearing glasses trying to make the calls, Bud.
Yeah. And I can't. I think that's just another problem we're going to have. If you put a shot clock in there, that's going to open a can of worms. I don't think they won't.
And who is talk about the fiscal responsibility of the schools to put a shot clock in?
Yeah.
That's going to cost every school in the TSSAA X amount of dollars. And then you mentioned the fact you've got to have someone to run that shot clock.
And then what about the lights around the goal? You'll have to have that light around the goal to go off to where, the shot goes off, where the goals went in or not, because there ain't no way the referee can look at the clock and the ball going through the goal at the same time.
Not at the fast.
You're going to have to have the shot clock on the ball goal.
Where does it fall?
Off.
Is it responsibility of the TSSAA council, general council, to vote on this, or does it come through the National Federation?
No, it should be statewide.
Yeah.
It's by state. Maryland already has shot clocks. There's several states that have them now.
Joe, how long? You've coached 40 years, okay? Is it beneficial to the spectator in the stand?
Yes, it's beneficial to the game. I was against the shot clock for a long time, and then I had the, if you want to call it, the privilege of doing a McNairy Central and Chester County game for the district title.
I remember
I'm not sure what the purpose of it was. I forgot now. There was a purpose. It was 7-4 at halftime.
Didn't you play a game against Southside that was the same situation?
Yeah, Steve Patterson. I'll call names. I had Dr. Tom Jones when I had Gehring and Walden and that bunch. Pulled the same stunt. And then I beat his brains out after we caught. We got the opening tip, Bud, and let me tell them this because they got to know what happened. We suspected that Dr. Jones, who had just as equally as good a team, his talent was equal to mine. We suspected that Dyersburg was going to let the air out of the ball. I watched them warm up, and something was fishy. And I took the girls back in a little earlier than we normally did, and I said, hey, we're coming out man-to-man, because at that point in time, Kristen was just a sophomore, and, we were on the junior high system. So it was her first year of high school. I had 4 starters that were first-year high school players. Sometimes 3. I think Cindy Brzee was hurt, but it doesn't matter about that. They were coming out with equal talent and holding the ball. They had a kid that could shoot the ball crossing half-court line girls basketball. But we got the opening tip. We set up a play and made sure Kristen kind of jumped a little bit into their jumper, or Walden did. I forgot which one was jumping that night. We scored off the tip, turned around, and eyeball to eyeball, cornbread and onion breath, pressed them, and then got that, and we led 4-0. They held the ball the rest of the quarter. How about that? And that was the boringest game. So what we did is we picked them up all over the court. If they went to the restroom or the concession stand, we were even pressing them up there. And now Tom did do me one favor. It made our man-to-man get better. I've never seen a madder bunch of girls get after Dyersburg than those kids did that night.
Bud, let me ask you something. This Kelly Harper, she's on a – you're never going to have Pat Head come back at Tennessee. No semblance of it, okay? The way she commanded the 7 national championships.
Yeah. There were eight.
Yeah. There'll never be Pat Head back on the hill. Not going to happen. So can Kelly be successful? Because there's a lot of naysayers that are talking about her maybe recruiting and even on the bench.
Well, I look at some of her in-game plays that she's doing, and I'm just scratching my head. Last night, we should have beat them by 40 points. When we got the ball, when we posted up our bigs inside, it was like shooting layups. But yet we still wanted to let Darby shoot 3-pointers. She hit 4 last night, but everybody was wanting to shoot outside. When you got people that score inside and they can't be stopped, we got 2 people first team all SEC. Why are they not getting the ball every time down low and posted up shooting layups?
But that's coaching.
When they did that last night, that's coaching. And when they did last night, they did score. But when they let them get back in the game last night was when they started playing that dribble drive outside 30 foot and had 4 people outside the 3-point line and shooting 3-pointers and not hitting them. It ain't so bad if you shoot them and hitting them, but we shoot them and not making them.
Is she a bad coach, though, Bud? Is she a medium coach where Pat Head?
I'm not calling her a bad coach.
I understand.
Well, I think she's a little better than average, don't you, Bud?
A little bit, but let's look at the stats. And the coach we just fired and run off in the same time frame won 20 more games than she did. Now, what's that tell you? In the same time frame, the coach we just run off before her won 20 more games.
But now she didn't play ball for the ball.
Yeah.
Right, but she didn't play ball for the ball.
Yes, she did.
Yeah, Holly played
but not
Pat's early teams.
Yeah, but not
Holly Ward won 3 national championships. She's on the first national championship team we had.
But is it all politics? Where does Danny White come into this?
Oh, yes, he may have to send this out. I don't believe he's involved in the politics of going on up there. But we've talked about the rosters up there. You've got the girl at Indiana was player of the year 3 years in a row at Greenfield, and I watched play, and she dominated. She was player of the year 3 years in a row and didn't lose a high school basketball game.
Yeah, but she became the defensive player of the year in the Big Ten. They just
I know that. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. She's defensive player in the Big Ten, and she did not lose a game in high school. I watched.
Well, that's Chloe
Darby
Moore. We'll
play.
get her name in there.
Chloe Moore.
Yeah.
And she dominated, left-handed point guard, 6 foot tall, and dominated like she's doing in college.
But her teammates on the squad.
Yeah, but in her daddy, a state representative, folks.
That's the head of the board, and the thing he's in charge of is Department of Education. It's one of his main clubs that he's the president of.
Well,
That smells like rotted fish to me.
y'all got a lot of fish. You got a dirty fish market, bud.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That don't stink to high heaven. I mean, what does? I want them to win, and I know the girl. And her sister got a scholarship, and she couldn't be. Kentucky was 2-14 this year. She wouldn't have lettered on Kentucky.
That's true.
Bud.
That's true. Bud, he's shooting it
Man,
straight.
he shoots it straight. He's a Tennessee.
Facts. All I tell you is the facts. I mean, if you don't want the facts, don't ask me to call you, because that's all I'm going to tell you. No matter whose feelings it hurts.
Bud's a
Facts is facts.
star on Dragnet. Just the
And
facts, ma'am. Isn't that right, Bud?
Exactly. I'm telling it just like it is. And they know that. And I know the girls' people. I know Tandy Darby. His brother played with my Big Ryan, my son. He played on the Greenfield team when they went 9-3 and had to play Jackson Christian 2 games in a row. You remember that, Coach Joe?
Oh, yes, I do. I
Back
remember
in
that
99.
well, and that was, I think, Paul Tinkle and I did those games on radio.
You did them. And that was in 99. Greenfield was 9-1. 8-1, and they had to play Jackson Christian the last game of the year, and because of the way the thing was configured, had to play the first round of the playoffs.
They showed it.
Back-to-back weeks.
Bud, we've got about 2 minutes before that break's going to play. It is your turn because you're loaded for bear, and this is Bud Young Unfiltered, one of our high school and college reporters. He's there at the Jackson Christian UT Legends camp. Bud, it's your turn for about 1 minute and 45 seconds.
I'm going to get y'all some pictures and stuff today and some talks. And I'm getting phone numbers for people we'll do interviews with later on. And it's going to be a really good camp out here. But I want to tell you about the men's basketball. Losing Ziegler I think it's going to really hurt Tennessee, because he was one of the few people that when push comes to shove, you could give him the ball and he could make his own shot. Between him and Phillips, I don't think we've got anybody else that can create and make their own shot. Maybe we could get Como and get the ball down low. He can post up. He can make his own shot, but you got to get the ball to him.
Josiah's going to have to turn it up even more, isn't he, when he's in there?
Exactly, Josiah. He can. If he gets hurt again, we ain't got enough to even hardly field a team.
Well, we won't be able to cook any of that fish either, bud.
And we have got also, if you look at it, Plavsic hit like, I think, 9 or 10 shots in a row. Now, he don't shoot outside of 2 foot, but when he gets the ball in the post, he puts it in the hole. He stuffs it in the hole. And you got to have that. If you're going to have any kind of three-point game, you got to have a thread inside. You got Clunwall, him, or Phillips. Somebody's got to be able to make a presence inside, or they're going to play everybody outside and just let the inside go.
Bud,
Barnes is a good recruiter, but some of his X's nose leave a little something to be desired at times.
yeah, we got to hit this break, but I may be talking to you off air a little bit.
Right.
Grab Trey Smith's number, because when I had my last iOS update, I lost the 21 numbers, and unfortunately, one of them was his.
I'm gonna get Chris's. If you got Chris's, I'll give you. You got Chris.
I got Trey's number, yeah.
I'll get and I've got Jabari's. I've got the rest of them, but they said that I'll be tickled to do one, and I'm gonna try to hook them up with some other camps in Savannah and Clarksville, Tennessee, and maybe Newport, and then Bolivar, and a couple of places, because this is something that the kids of West Tennessee really need, and you're not gonna beat the camp at this price.
Absolutely.
And to make the legends of Tennessee football, and get shirts and autographs and something. Kids remember this forever.
You are right. Bud, got about 15 seconds, and I've got to hit the button in the commercial play. Great report as always, and I'll be with you off air.
Thank you, sir. Y'all have a good day.
And let's and guys, let's take that time out here on the Lightning Strike Sports Show. Fleet Feet, your locally owned source for the best shoes for school, work, running, and everyday comfort. They offer a 3D scan of your feet and professional fitting. Fleet Feet sells the top-selling brands Hoka, On Cloud, and Brooks. To add comfort to your spikes or other performance shoes, let Fleet Feet fit you for a pair of arch support inserts. Get the quality you want and the service you deserve at Fleet Feet in Jackson on Oilwell Road beside Walgreens.
Tired of going to the dealerships only to see empty spaces? Then come to Carlock Nissan of Jackson. We have over 60 new vehicles in stock and more coming in daily. You can see, feel, and of course smell that new car smell. Save up to $8,600 off MSRP on a new Nissan. Plus, special APR financing as low as 1.9%. It's all at Carlock Nissan of Jackson. You should already be here.
At Dynamics Physical Therapy, we help our clients get back to doing what they love. Dynamics is now serving communities throughout West Tennessee.
And we welcome you back to the Lightning Strike Sports Show. Bill Hamilton, Jimmy Butler, Coach Joe Holloway. You just heard Bud Young, who told you Bud is a good reporter for us. He'll get out, and he's right there on the spot. And he'll tell you exactly what he thinks, but he does a great job doing that. I want to welcome Fleet Feet along with Red Hooks. We'll tell you more about those. Just saw a great commercial. Fleet Feet, they get involved in these marathons, 5Ks, etc. And I want to say just about every Friday or Saturday, and I'll have to check my notes on that. I was in the store the other day. They got some shoes, and when you got feet that have been hurt and you play with broken bones in your feet and they can fit you. And if you don't have any injuries, they've still got great shoes for you and a great place. They got other things besides shoes at Fleet Feet. Red Hooks, I recommend the shrimp. And if my Marine buddy, and I wasn't in the Marines, he was, but I met him a long time ago. Joe Gracie is from Rhode Island, and they love seafood up there. He loves their scallops. We pronounce them both ways down here. And, of course, I don't think there's anything on the menu that my wife won't eat there. And this sounds crazy, but for a place that can serve it Cajun style, several styles, they've got – I like their boiled corn, too. It tastes great. Good old corn on the cob right there with whether you have shrimp, anything. You can get a lot of things, but I love it. I like you can peel them and eat them. And I like their sauce for the cocktail sauce for the shrimp. And you can look at me and tell me that I am on a seafood diet.
If he sees it, he eats
Well,
it.
wait, are you announcing that you're running a half a marathon next month?
No, I used to run those 5Ks and do
Yeah,
some
but how
things.
many years ago, Joe?
Back when I was in college.
How
and
many
a little
years? That's
after
50 plus, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty far back.
okay.
Peggy Birmingham had just come back to Union to be head of the women's part of the athletic department, start the basketball team up rather than an extramural sport. She took Ms. Grace Williams' place, so that's how long it goes. Okay, a couple of text questions. We had the one. We're going to continue to talk about that. If they add a shot clock to high school basketball, then they need to change men's college basketball to have 4 periods instead of 2 was theirs. We've talked, and we're going to talk more about it. Also, Cindy Deaton wanted us to talk about Memphis basketball. Bill, I'm going to let you lead the story. You've already told them it was a sellout, but tell them a little more about that. And we've got our main man back, but we're playing the number 1 team in the nation at Memphis.
Joe, let me tell you something. Lee Hunt was a assistant coach with Coach Gene Bartow, and today in the Daily Memphian, nice article written about Lee Hunt. People don't realize how much assistant coach Lee Hunt, Wayne Yates, and et cetera mean to particularly this team 50 years ago that Gene Bartow led against the monstrous Bill Walton, 21-22. Tomorrow's, game at 11 o'clock, as I told at Umphy's this morning, my whole morning's blocked off because I think the Tigers are going to bring the old flaming as if we were playing the University of Louisville. Houston's going away. They're going in to their new conference. So this is one of those farewell songs, and I hope we give Keith a nice message. He's done a good job. I'm not going to argue that. Penny's done a good job. We don't agree with him sometimes, but he's a top-notch recruiter. He's got good people on the bench with him, Joe, and I'm looking forward to the game. I think it's going to be an up and down. Houston can really play this game.
Do you think Memphis might come out in the old Memphis State uniforms? They've used them a couple of times this year.
I like them.
Yeah, I do too. I saw the Nike symbol on one sleeve and then the University of Memphis that I had, and I'm looking for. We got a diamond in the rough,
let's get Diamond Dave on. We'll talk some more about Memphis. I do want to say this. Had a great article in the Daily Memphian about Final Four memories Lee Hunt left on the 72-73 Tiger team. Diamond Dave, what do you want to start with today? You are loaded for bear, I can tell.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Doing fine.
I
had to let the phone cool off for a minute. Bud was kind of on fire this morning with some of his comments, but
shot clock in high school, Dave, good or bad?
I think they just leave it where it is.
I do too. What about 4 quarters for a college game?
I've gotten used to it in the women's action. I'm not so sure that I want the men want it to change for the men yet. I have mixed emotions about it, but I would right now leave that where it is too.
All right, Blake Butler. I saw his picture with his handsome sons enrolled. They've made a contract on a house that's not been fulfilled yet, but they're negotiating. What have you heard any rumors about coaching positions at TCA?
No, I've had about 4 people to call me about what's happening out there with the search, and all 4 of those people are interested in the job. I'm not at liberty to tell you who those people are, but I will tell you all of them have connections. I have connections with, but they do not live here locally. No.
What about the job that Blake Butler did, and you've been with him since the start? It's going to be difficult to replace. It's like following Gene Bartow or John Wooden, or those premier coaches are hard to follow with the successes that Blake had, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. And, you got a good core of people coming back. And obviously we'll have to just wait and see what happens. I think Blake, we've had some great athletes out there and some great football players. But let's face it, the school that size, it's still a numbers game. Offensive lineman gets hurt, you move someone else in. It's a domino effect, especially at a school that doesn't have a lot of depth through the years. And that's nothing against Blake or TCA. That's just the case with a lot of smaller schools. And the bottom line is that it'll be a tough task for anyone coming in, but I think it's a great job. I think it's one of the best jobs in the city, one of the best jobs in the area, one of the best jobs in the state. And I think they'll find the right guy.
Dave, Bill and I were talking before we went on the air this morning. You've got X number of schools in Jackson-Madison County, and you got sub-state games in the boys' side and Monday night, girls tonight. There's only one school in Madison County that has a chance to go to the state tournament. That's the Southside Lady Hawks. Just your thoughts on, are there too many schools in Jackson? Is the field of athletes so diluted that none of them, they can all have decent teams, but none of them have what you'd call an outstanding team anymore?
Well, you can make a case for that, Jimmy, and that's a good question. I think that things go in cycles. I was just talking to someone the other day of what's happened with Liberty and, the athletes going somewhere else now to some degree. But, and I want to wish Southside the very best. I think they're still undefeated, and I haven't seen them play, but I've talked to some people from South Gibson that's lost to them, I think, 3 times now, and they say they're absolutely loaded, and he does a really good job down there. But to get back to your question, you could make a case for that, I guess, but I don't know. I don't think that will ever change, to be honest with you.
And I'm looking at 2 boys teams that have a chance to go to the state tournament, one being the Haywood County Timecats, the other one being the Middleton Tigers. Seems like those programs, I guess the fact that they are, only one school basically in that county, that they have all the athletes go there.
Bolivar would argue with that, Jimmy. Wouldn't Bolivar argue that they don't have all the talent in Hardeman County?
But, you look at Middleton year in and year out, they're always an outstanding team. In Haywood County, no matter the sport, they're at the top of their game, whatever sport you're talking about.
Well, it's just one of those schools that has the athletes, no doubt about it. And Haywood, I'd never count Haywood out. Bill and I've talked about Haywood and some of the football teams and basketball teams that they've had over there. But yeah, you just pretty well. I don't think Milton's quite as strong as they've been or they were, but they're still Milton, and you don't count them out, especially this time of the year.
Dave, we were talking about TCA. Let's go to the place that writes your check, okay? And that's
Sure.
the Bethel Wildcats. You've got baseball going on, softball going on, esports going on. How many sports are you covering for Bethel right now?
28.
How many athletes?
Well, it's almost 800 athletes. It's more than, as I've documented with you guys before, it's as many athletes and more than some SEC schools have. And I have a really, really good assistant. I have a part-time assistant. I have 7 great student assistants, and it's been all we can do to keep our head above water. Yesterday, for example, we fought rain. They're out of town. Well, we fought rain delays. I was pretty well busy from, 11 o'clock yesterday morning right up till 9 o'clock last night, keeping up with teams and tweeting and then doing the social media. The social media thing has really blossomed, and it's become just a unbelievable task to keep that updated. But it's I think baseball played last night and had an 8-5 lead, and then wound up losing 18-8. They had the run rule against them in the 8th. The softball team yesterday down in Gulf Shores, matter of fact, upset the number 8 ranked team in the country, turned around and played another team that was receiving votes, Texas A&M and Texarkana, and had a lead in the last inning and a chance to get a big day, and then they gave up 3 runs in the bottom of the inning and lost. But it's a labor of love. I'm not complaining or anything. It's just it's sometimes a little overwhelming. You have to sit back, stand back a little bit. Even when you're working from your office at home, you have to sit back and say, okay, just calm down a little bit. We'll get it done sooner or later and grind it out.
Dave, we have got to hit a break in about a minute. You got any final words? And I may be with you off air a little later when we got one of our longer break commitments. But any final words for the fans out there?
No, I was just looking about, perusing through some pictures this morning, and I found some pictures of all of us together down at Owen Arena. And, it sits there silently this morning, and March always evokes a lot of memories for me, and I know you guys do down there. And I don't think the national tournament, they're playing pods now, and Bethel didn't make it, either men or women this year, but they play in the pods, and they have the 16 pods, and then they all, for the women, for example, go to Sioux City, and the men go to Kansas City still. But March always evokes a lot of great memories for me down there.
It really does,
Yeah.
And you did some great games, including that Lambeth and Union one. Tell you what we've got to do, Dave. We've got to take a timeout. But
all right, guys, great to join you. And I'm sorry a little late getting with you.
That's okay. That's the reason we'll try to work you back in there.
Okay. All right, guys.
We're going to actually looks like we're going to have to skip the timeout. I'm going to try to go ahead and get him on. We'll double up on the timeouts a little later. Sean, are you on the other end?
Yes, sir, I am. How's everybody doing today?
Doing good.
We are
good.
doing. There is a ton of UT questions. I hope you wrote yours down because I have a 13-week-old puppy at home, and the questions that had been texted or given to me at Uppy's and a couple of other places. Unfortunately, my pup decided he needed to eat them more than I needed to read them. And so
taking in that information.
Yeah, he's heavy on information right now. Just he can't spit it out though like we can. But folks, you are listening to the best insider in the state of Tennessee for UT athletics, and he can tell you things that we can't tell you. He's, I believe, one of the topics was he's going to talk to you about how and why our shortstop to be, or whatever they decide to do with him, why he's eligible now and he wasn't, and about Coach Vitello sitting out. I know you got some comments on the women's game, but even though we won, Bud and I were not happy with the way it was played last night. I'll go ahead and tell you that, and I'll interject some comments about that. The UT Legends camp is here in town, starts at 10 o'clock, instructing people. Of course, men's baseball, one of the 5 best teams in this country. Yeah. I still think they're number one, but, some services don't think they're number one. And we've got other spring sports. People forget we run track and do a few things like that at UT.
And the softball team hadn't lost but one game.
That's right. So we'll let you choose which one you want to attack first.
All right. I'll go ahead and start with Mr. Jimmy's Polo first. Coach, you and Mr. Bill got to get with the program and get some of that beautiful orange on.
Yeah, well, I'm wearing my official Worthy Road Studios BallGame Blitz shirt. You can see right over here. I'm tapping the patch if you're watching.
I've got
Sean
grandsons.
Yes,
My grandson's got Jackson Christian. He's 6'3", 215. He wants to play at 225, so he'll be watching the UT Vol. I don't think he'll sign with them because I'm going to try to stop that. But you were talking about the baseball.
Oh, wait a minute, Paul. I got to tell you, he's going to get in the picture if you're watching, Sean. Paul is wearing a Tennessee Dad T-shirt. I'm talking about
Okay,
a
that
UT
works.
with the power T and everything right
so
there.
you got 50% of the staff doing what you want to do, right?
That'll work.
Baseball last night. Watched the Nashville TV station. Man, your pitcher last night, he was throwing BBs, wasn't he?
Oh, yes, sir. Dolander, he's projected, first overall pick. He's getting comparisons to the likes of, the Chris Sales and whatnot. He's very dominant. I know Coach, said he believes that, we're still the best team in the nation, and I agree, and it's because of that pitching staff. It's so deep. Even the midweek guys are dominant.
I tell you what, I've watched several of their games this year, and the three they throw out there on the weekend, I know I'm kind of prejudiced, but I think that's the best three-man rotation in all of college baseball right now.
Oh, I agree with you. I mean, all three of those guys do a great job. Beam especially, at times last year, he's our Sunday pitcher. He looked like the best of the three. But, the other two guys, they get the higher projections, but it just seems like every time Beam goes out on Sundays, he's just dominant. He's always dialed in.
And I tell you what, we had some discussion earlier about kind of ironic that Coach Vitello sits out 3 games, and the next thing you know, the shortstop's eligible to play.
Yeah, that's just kind of I don't know if the timing was coincidental, but the 3-game suspension that Coach Vitello served, it was self-imposed. Just for they said that we poached Ahuna from Kansas. He was leaving Kansas anyway. We flew him in during Super Regionals last year. So he flew in without transcripts. It's level 3 NCAA violation, and we went ahead and, took care of it, self-imposed it.
I got to interject this because I know how Trish Roberts, and I'm really going back in UT women's basketball history. I know how she got to UT. Pat played on the Olympic team some while she was a young coach after she had left Martin, and Trish Roberts played on it, and Trish was there at Emporia State. And Pat helped her move off the campus of Emporia State, but that was in the old AIW rules days, not the NCAA. And she couldn't have gotten away with that now, but that was – I don't want to say it wasn't legal, but it wasn't frowned upon in the AIW, and there were some unusual stories you could find Delta State when they were winning national championships then. But so Coach, he really didn't do as much as Pat did to get Trish Roberts to UT.
No, as tampering's been going on from the beginning of the time, Coach.
Yep, it has. And I got to ask about the women's team. They play tonight on ESPNU, and Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, 7 p.m. Eastern, which would be Central Time. It'd be 6 p.m.
Yeah.
And they've got a tough task. This LSU team is nobody to laugh at, sniff at. Now, South Carolina, I know Ole Miss has improved, but they got an easy time with Ole Miss.
Well,
they don't beat them by 15 or 20 points, something's wrong.
Ole Miss took them to overtime.
I know,
last
but
time
if
they
that shouldn't have happened, just like we've had some games. We have a little concern because we're not taking the ball inside when we've got a definite advantage. Last night, Kentucky couldn't have stopped us if we let inside if we'd put 8 people on the floor, or they had put 8 people on the floor. And we're shooting threes, which is wonderful, and we won it. But I don't know, and there were some clock management issues that I had. But I'm going to let you talk about the game.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what cost us against LSU the first time was a little bit of clock management. I think LSU went on maybe a 13 or a 14-0 run in the last 5 minutes, and Kelly never took a timeout. You got to kind of slow that momentum down, when it gets down like that. But we got to keep getting to the free throw line. Horston got to the free throw. Key got to the free throw line last night. She was 14 of 14, so that's going to help and keep banging down low. I'm like you. I don't like seeing all the threes that we're taking.
Well, the money sport continues to be UT football. I'm going to bring up everybody's talking about the conference alignment, who are going to be the three that Tennessee's assigned with. Heifel continues to be kind of the featured speaker, so to speak, the one that Danny White brought from UCF. But your recruiting continues to be very powerful, doesn't it, Sean?
Oh, yes, sir. This class that we're building right now is really, really high-profile guys. We've got 55 guys on campus for junior day today. Bunch of high-profile guys. Really working, to where I guess when Heupel first got here and there was some questions surrounding his recruiting, we really, really had to battle for, the 4-star guys and maybe could get a couple of the 5-star guys, on campus. I mean, we did land Nico, but just as far as having, high-profile guys across the board coming in, now it's, instead of us having to reach out, recruits are knocking down the door trying to get on campus.
Sean, you look at, we have 5 commitments for the class of 2024. 4 of those guys, defensive players, and then picked up a commitment this past week from J.J. Harrell, a wide receiver out of Sardis, Mississippi. And according to my count, all of them are 4 stars except one who's a 3-star. That's to get those kind of commitments early shows me that Coach Heupel is out there more or less picking the ones he wants at this point.
Yeah, he does. And you're sitting with the receiver last year, the big kid coming in. His name's escaping me right now, but he started out, outside the top 500 and finished as like the 76th player in the nation when everything was over with. Big time wide receiver.
Laycock,
yes, sir. So they do a great job at evaluating these guys.
And I tell you what, we mentioned spring practice just around the corner. And we've talked about this before, but the fact that so many of this class and the transfers already on campus, that has to be a great positive going into this 2023 season.
Oh, it's huge, just for those guys to learn the system. We've got a few guys missing spring, so a lot of those guys are going to get opportunities early. Brew McCoy's going to miss all of spring. Unfortunately, one of those 5-star defensive linemen that are coming in, David Hobbs, he's also going to miss spring. He had a shoulder procedure that was kind of out of nowhere that we just found out about, and he's going to miss spring also. So there's a lot of opportunities for the young guys to get some reps and also to get in and fit with the culture.
Sean, I've got a text in, and I need to remind people, this is Sean Sparks. He is one of, if not the best insider in the state of Tennessee. He has on Facebook, and I'm looking right at it, the Vol Vault. I don't have a membership yet because I don't have Facebook, but I can pull it up on Safari and see it. And you can't miss it. It's right behind his head on his picture that's on the screen. But we had a text here that wants to know, how do you think Charles Campbell will do as your kicker next year?
There's been a lot of rave about him. He's a solid kicker. I think he's going to do fine. I think he's going to do well. I don't think he'll be anybody that's going to lose us games.
He's right here from Jackson, Tennessee, so we're kind of proud.
Well, Tom, you got to remember, Tom Allen, former defensive coordinator at Lambeth, recruited him, and I was kind of surprised that a young man from North Jackson playing for USJ would find himself with Indiana and won several games, at least one with over a 50-yard field goal. So I've got to ask you, though, Sean, when you start looking at your football program, you got Virginia playing at Nissan Stadium opening night. How important is that game in setting the tone for the balance of your schedule this fall?
Just as far as, anybody that's starting with I wouldn't call it a high marquee game. To be honest, Virginia is not very good. But just you always want to start off on the right foot with so many, obviously, Joe Milton knows the system, but it's his team now, just so many changes. So you want to get everything rolling in the right direction when you start off.
Got a question, Sean. Transfer portal opens up again in May. I've heard some talk, of Milton and Nico up there at quarterback. Is there a chance that Tennessee could possibly look for a quarterback in the transfer portal, just quote an insurance policy behind those two guys?
They may try to bring in maybe another grad transfer or somebody that may have just, not be happy somewhere where, Georgia's got 3 5-star guys sitting over there. They're thinking one of those guys are going to leave. But to me, we're not going to be able to convince somebody like that to come in and try to compete with Joe or Nico. So I see more of like what they did with something like what they did with Gaston Moore last year. Get a guy that knows, familiar with the system, a veteran guy that can come in and just kind of be that extra voice in the quarterback's room.
Okay, got to hit you with this because we had a text earlier, and I apologize to a couple of texters, but we've had so much content, and Sean, you know how it is because you bring a ton of content too. They had a text that wanted to know, and then they texted me back and added Joe Milton to it. I think they sent one in originally on our text line that wants to know how do you and how do the coaches at UT evaluate quarterbacks? Yeah, what do coaches look for in quarterbacks? And then they've got a tag about UT and the NFL. They sent me the one of the things they sent in a personal text to me was they want to know, do they look at accuracy, arm strength, and anticipation and footwork?
Yeah, they work on all those, but first and foremost, just decision making. I think if y'all seen what they asked Hendon Hooker in his his interview during the draft combine, they asked him, how does he feel about getting knocked about playing in a one read offense? And he said, well, it's not my fault that my first wide receiver was always open.
Especially Jay and I.
Right, correct.
Yeah, they want you to address Jalen's chances. I believe he runs today his 40. Does he have a chance to either tie or break that 4.2, whatever it is, 4.23 mark?
I don't think he hits I think 4.22 was John Ross. I think he's probably going to run maybe 4.27, 4.28. I do think he'll be in the 4.2s.
Wow.
That's moving.
Yeah.
That's flying.
I tell you what, Sean, bad news for the men's basketball team with the loss of Zakai Ziegler. But I think there's enough leadership on this team. I'm not going to say to offset his loss, but I think they can compensate. And with Vescovi and with Jordan James back now, I think they can probably still overcome this loss of Ziegler.
I do. I've been told the seniors have kind of rallied everybody together and told them that they're going to do it. They all need to pull together and they're going to fight like crazy. Zakai is a tremendous basketball player, a tremendous human being. But the place that it hurts us the most, I believe, is when, and we'll probably see it against Auburn today, is when they run the full court press and really press the ball carrier. Other than that, I think we get longer on defense. He's up for Defensive Player of the Year, but I still think we get longer on defense as a whole instead of an individual. I think it helps us on the defensive end, and I think it's going to also help us stretch the ball a little bit more.
One other player that's really kind of coming to his own here in the last couple of weeks, big center out of New York,
Awaka.
He is starting to play some pretty good basketball, and they keep commentating on every broadcast that his best basketball is in his future. But he's made tremendous strides here this last couple of weeks of the season.
Absolutely, and he was a sleeper last year. Actually, Zakai kind of put us on him last year. There was some dialogue back and forth. He was going to reclassify to be in high school again one more year, but then he ended up reclassifying again to get back onto campus. And mainly it was just for his rebounding, and he was going to be a project player. But, the kid's hungry. He works hard. A couple scouts come to see Julian Phillips, and they left talking about Awaka. So
that's pretty good. Okay, you mentioned Phillips. I personally think he will be back at Tennessee next year. I think he's, showed some promise, but I don't know that he is ready to, quote, take the next step. What are you hearing about him in Knoxville?
He won't return. He's going to leave.
Okay.
It's not. And like I do now, it's not really off of what you production in college anymore. These one and done guys, they know that they're gonna do their 1 year and then they're gonna go because it's off of measurements and potential. The NBA drafts off of potential now, and he's still sitting around in that 20 range.
Sean, I'm gonna ask the last question. Then we always give you time, and we'll try to push the commercial break back 30 seconds because we're going to go over it. And fans, there'll be trivia after we come out of the commercial break. Sean, how many players from UT not necessarily at the combine, but you combine total are going to get drafted in the NFL this year?
At least 4. I think that we have 7 there. I believe you get Hendon will get drafted, Tillman, Byron, Hyatt, Wright. So I guess that's 5.
What about Jeremy?
And then you may get a flyer on Banks.
Yeah.
Hendon's going to be the steal of the draft, isn't he? Because of his injury, somebody won't draft him as high as he should be, and somebody's fixing to walk away with a prize. Maybe not quite like Trey Smith, who had a camp, or he's at the camp today here of Ball Legends. It was Trey Smith Day yesterday here in Jackson, but Hendon's going to be the steal, isn't he?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, you're getting a mature guy. I know people want to talk how he's 26 years old, but with the way the game is officiated now, these quarterbacks are allowed to play longer. They're not getting as many hits, so that's not really a big deal to me. That's more of a positive. And then we all know what kind of great young man and leader he is, and that's what makes you successful in that type of league.
John, what do you need to tell the people of not only Jackson, Tennessee, Middle Tennessee? We got listeners. I know Moose is on up there in East Tennessee, and our guy in Kuala Lumpur. I haven't heard from him, but he's usually listening.
Yeah, I'm just going to hop around a little bit real quick. We talked about the baseball team and the pitching staff. It's about to get even stronger. Camden Sewell's fixing to return. He's missed the start of the season with elbow soreness, but he's set to return within the next week. So that'll be, to add to that pitching staff that we talked about earlier. I know a couple weeks ago I got asked about Tamari Key, if she was going to come back. As of right now, she's telling people that she is going to return. Now, when the draft process comes and NIL packages get brought up or any of that could change. But as of right now, she's letting people know that she plans to return.
And, Sean, I've just been informed your buddy Peyton Sickler in Gatlinburg is listening to you too. So,
hey, Peyton, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, your fan club's here. Sean, we look forward next week. I actually have questions, but I know how time constraints and stuff are. You've done wonderful as always. He is making a decision about whether he's going to coach baseball, because people ask us from time to time, does Sean really coach baseball? Well, he has up until this year, haven't you, Sean?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Sean, we're going to take the time out. Have a great what's left of the weekend, and we look forward to next week. It won't get here fast enough so we can talk to you again.
Yeah, y'all do the same thing. Have a great weekend. I appreciate y'all, and go Vols.
There he is, the one and only Fleet Feet and Red Hooks there on the corner of Parkway and the bypass. And, of course, Fleet Feet is on the oil well part of, where it changes folks from University Parkway over to oil well. You go on down close to the Walgreens store. You're going to see some great commercials about them. You're going to hear from them. We're going to have trivia. Bill will have to tell you the rules. And I've got a little trivia we're not going to ask about, but sitting right here, and I do need to say this right now, and I'm going to mention it again. The late, great Neil Walker, and he is late now, he died this past week from McNairy Central, and I'm looking at the 2 guys that did his games right there. One of them just happens to be Scotty Wolf's dad. We're going to talk about that a little more. We'll be back after this time out on the Lightning Strike Sports Show. Mention BallGame Blitz Sports Network and receive a free gift.
Thompson & Smith, the area's premier independent insurance brokerage, has been serving families and businesses in the region through its founding companies since 1927. With their many insurance company partners, Thompson & Smith provides insurance products for family, home and auto, contractors, retailers, restaurants, manufacturers, medical and dental clinics, as well as any other business or organization seeking quality coverage, risk management expertise and customer-focused service. Call them today to discuss your insurance needs.
The BallGame Blitz Sports Network by Worthy Road Studios. With over 750,000 views in 2022, we are where you need to advertise. Please subscribe to our Worthy Road Studios YouTube channel and join the other 4,000 subscribers watching local sports, including Union University, USJ, TCA, Jackson Christian, and Peabody. Our multi-camera broadcasts include slow motion instant replay, on-screen scoreboard and graphics, and professional announcers. Thanks to our sponsors who make it all possible. BallGame Blitz Sports Network by Worthy Road Studios, the premier sports broadcast network in West Tennessee.
And we are back with the Lightning Strike Sports Show. Let me take care of a little bit of business. Bill is warming up. He's got trivia over there, and we're going to have to talk about the rules. A couple of texts that have come in. We love to hear Diamond Dave right there. Also, it would be expensive for high school to add a clock at the end or at each end, and it is expensive. If they add a shot clock to high school, you've already heard that one, they need to change men's college basketball to have 4 periods instead of 2. We're going to ask Steve Beverly about that when he calls in. Plus, Steve will like this segment. He is a trivia master. Steve Beverly, the voice of Union and USJ now, will be calling in a few moments. When does high school baseball and softball start? They cannot start and play a regular game. They're having scrimmage games right now because they're being reported on Game Changer. But high school baseball and softball start March the 13th. And what do coaches look for in quarterbacks? We kind of answered that one with Sean, and especially the NFL. He added one that an NFL insider doesn't have, and that's decision-making. That's one of the most important ones. You can win with a quarterback that's got a little better than average skills, but he's got to be a great decision maker. Okay, now very quickly, Neil Walker, the great star that played at the same time Miguel Ratliff, Richie Boterford, Avery down at McNairy, and they had all those good teams under Red Horton. And Neil and Miguel played over at Lambeth for a couple of years. Neil passed away. You could hear his broadcast, or the broadcast of his game, Bobcat basketball on Q105, the voice of Carol Graham and Albert Wolf Jr. And Albert Wolf Jr. just happens to be the dad of Scotty Wolf that lives here in town and is in the banking and financing business with one of our banks. And it says Carol Graham, Albert Wolf Jr., and bringing the action on WXOQ 105. Scotty told me, I called him up and asked him, did your dad ever broadcast one of your games? And he said, no, because I sit on the bench all the time. And I thought Scotty was really honest. Now, here he is, the trivia master himself, and he's going to tell you the rules about it. And there's an important text line. We're right now, we're not taking phone calls for the trivia. And you got to use that text line. Bill, it's all yours.
You got to put your name on, too.
Yeah,
Joe.
we have to have your name or we can't award you the prize.
Well, I don't know who it would be, but here we go. Now, one of the questions is more or less, if you answer it, I'll give you the prize, but we're going to give David Clifton and his son and his nephew operate the Pig House, the mini roundabout behind Walgreens when you're coming down North Highland. Incredible folks, and they have told me they'd be more than happy. One of those 2-pound potatoes and or a barbecue sandwich with slaw, chop, cut, whatever you want to do on ketchup. Now, I'm going to tell you that the original maker of Play-Doh, now this is not a sports question.
Play-Doh.
But I've studied it. I was up at about 12 o'clock trying to get a kind of a funny question, okay? Play-Doh was made by Kutol, K-U-T-O-L products. It was originally made to clean wallpaper in a children's bedroom, okay? Play-Doh was a wall cleaning apparatus or cleaning stuff. And then in 1948, Joseph Kutol took over after his dad died. And in 1955, his sister convinced her, or actually the brother-in-law convinced that wallpaper cleaner could be a great children's toy. Now just think about that. Kutol made Play-Doh, and it was an original to clean wallpaper. Now, we'll ask you to, if you knew that, it's something to know. But now here's the question. We had 2 players that played local football. One of them played at Tigard, went on to JCM, started 44 straight games at the University of Memphis. He was involved in the training of one Trey Smith. Trey will tell you that. He pushed Trey Smith to become a better football player. He started off because I was contacted by the writer in Memphis trying to track this individual down. He played for the Philadelphia Eagles, signed as a free agent. I call him my friend. I want to know who he was. And the second one is almost too easy. I'm not going to give him any part of the name. He started out at East High. I watched him when I was popping popcorn at Rothrock, playing for Mary High when Melrose and Manassas would come to the Rock. He went on to play for Coach John Merritt at Tennessee State. A tremendous individual, and I will tell you this, he is a customer of the Pig House. My son was there one day. This individual comes through. He wanted a picture, and, well, just say he was tall, okay? So I want to know who was this person that played for Tigert, JCM in Memphis, and helped Trey Smith. And if you can't get that one, how about the guy that was pretty good guy size fella, played for East, Mary High, and Tennessee State. Either one of those would give you a monster potato and or the most beautiful barbecue, chopped or pulled or ketchup or hot sauce, whatever you want. And we've got the text line is 343-9929, and we'll get the certificate. We'll probably call you back or something if you can answer one of those questions.
And it is not Manley Fuller. We've already had somebody try
that.
Manley does hold the state rebounding record along with Larry Mansfield.
Yeah. It's tied with the Jolly Green Giant from Frazier.
Yeah, and he did that against Calvin Bailey's Gleason team. Okay. 30 rebounds.
And I heard it reported this week that your second gentleman attended JCM.
Nope, never did.
Nope.
Never did.
But boy, you could make him mad saying that.
Well,
he's very proud of where he attended. Just like you want to make me mad, tell me I went to JCM. Didn't go to JCM.
Well,
went to Jackson High.
I will say this.
He didn't go to Jackson High though.
Either one of these persons have always been, and they were from Jackson, Tennessee. There's no telling how many impressions that they gave in their football career. One of them with the Cowboys. One started out and played at the Super Bowl, because we've had a number. I will tell you that it is not Trey Teague, and it's not Jabari Greer, and it's not Trey Smith. These are –
and it's not Sylvester Hicks either.
No, but –
and we've had Sylvester tried. And, folks, again, 731-343-9929, and you just text us your name, and we will get in the one of the texts I had the right answer, but they left their name off.
Well, so they could text in with their name and the answer there, and you've got, and we'll give you. Yeah, Jim.
And one other point, the first gentleman should have gone to Northside.
Oh, I don't think so.
Yes.
No. Now you're in the recruiting wars.
No, with where he grew up, he should have gone to Northside.
Yeah, and he's very proud of
Well,
us.
he went there to can I mention the school he went to when he transferred? Because his brother-in-law was teaching and coaching there.
Well, yeah, that's we're not. These are too easy. I mean, our sports.
Well, we've had attempts, but so far everybody's been wrong.
Yeah, but somebody's got to do
it. Okay, we've got one, Bill, and it's Cindy D. And Cindy, I know how to take care of you. She has Too Tall Jones. She has the right answer. And she did put her name. You can see right there, we're showing Bill and Jimmy that she verified it. Cindy D., I will get that certificate to you. She is. We got to make a plaque or something too.
The
first trivia winner on the Lightning Strike Sports Show.
Well,
Cindy, we are so proud of you.
Well, Joe,
and it's a lady answer.
But this guy's in his 70s now. It's hard to believe.
Yeah. He just had a birthday.
When you're talking about too tall, just think about it. That name's always been with him. Where he positioned himself in the NFL draft. Do you think he'd have got some NIL money from
I think he'd gotten that and probably gotten to drive Merritt's Cadillac. So, got to ask you this. Do you know how old he is?
Joe, I would think. I was popping popcorn at Rothrock with Shelly Meeks and Turi Oman. I'll be 69 next month, so I would say he's like 74 years old.
What was his football number?
Oh, it was a lot of a number because it was long. When he ran down that Rothrock.
It was 70-something. What was his number? That will give you his real birth date or birth age.
Incredible player.
How old am I?
You're 71.
Okay. My 72nd birthday comes up in June.
So he's 1 year older than you?
No.
2 years older than you. 3 years older.
A couple of months older than I am. He's 72. His number was 72, right, Jim?
Yeah.
But he's made some wise business, and I think one of the things, Joe, that I'm most proud of is he's always said Jackson, Tennessee. He never hesitated. He resides in Dallas, but he comes back with the Brits and his other friends.
And now we've got to take a timeout, gentlemen. It's one of those that we've got to take. Steve Beverly will be with us. And, of course, Fleet Feet and Red Hooks. We'll be back after this.
This could be a true story. On October 3rd, a 2003 hatchback struck and killed a deer that goes by the name Buck. I know, right? He now has Buck's head proudly displayed on his living room wall. He tells a different story.
Shot it.
No, he didn't.
And to hide his lie, he took his car to Mitchell's Body Shop.
No, I didn't.
Yes, he did. And lucky for him, they made it look good as new. And as for Buck, the story continues.
Dynamics Physical Therapy, your elite provider in sports medicine and performance. Now serving communities throughout West Tennessee.
At Arrington Funeral Directors, we accept all prearranged funerals. So you may have prearranged your funeral in this town with another funeral home or even in another state, but we accept all prearranged funerals because we're here to serve families.
Downtown is thriving and the Blacksmith Restaurant is leading the pack. From the rustic dining room to the unmatched patio, eating local with family is what we're about. Live local, eat local, relax local.
We are back. Cindy D, and we know who she is, was the winner of the first one. Thank all of you people that tried the first trivia question. Now, holding to be brought up is a man that knows trivia quite well. He is a professor emeritus now. I like that word. That's kind of like Dr. Dennis Wilson down at Auburn.
Does that mean he's old?
No, that means that he's wise. 50 years plus in news, sports, broadcasting, mostly in television, but he's done radio. He, like Tom Brett and I, have worked till after 12 o'clock down at the NAIA many a night. And he is a native of Georgia, but we love him anyway, even though he does come from Georgia. Steve Beverly, we are glad to have you on the show. And if I know a lot of trivia. Steve is a master of trivia. And I'm going to let him first off because we've had a request for that. Tell them all about our friend, the game show host, Bill Cullen. He was more than a game show host, wasn't he?
Oh yeah. Good morning, gentlemen. But it is. He has an interesting story because he actually started in radio in Pittsburgh back in the 1940s, and he did hockey, he did roller derby, he did professional wrestling. And so he did. He was considered to be a triple threat man, in addition to being just the way radio was in those days, where you largely communicated with your audience and sometimes with a live audience. But Bill, when he got into television in the early 1950s, and his first show was something called Winner Take All, he continued to do sports. And one of the things his wife Ann told me was always fun was that for 2 seasons, Bill was the radio voice of Army football. And he and Red Grange, one of the all-time greats, they did the games together. And she said it was always fun because she said they were treated royally by the West Point folks. And they made a number of interesting trips along the way. And Bill was a solid play-by-play man. And even as late as 1967, when NBC tried to do one of its many answer shows to ABC's Wide World of Sports, they did something on Sunday nights called NBC Sports in Action. And Bill did He did commentary on track and field and on auto racing. It was an amazing career that he had, but because he was so aligned with game shows, a lot of people did not know that he had this background in sports.
He was super, and a lot of people, and I hope that was one of our texters, text me earlier in the week and wanted to know about it, because usually from time to time when we're on show, Steve and I will joke with each other. One of us will ask the other one about Bill Cullen, but what a guy. And there are other guys. Our president, the great communicator, Ronald Reagan, also was a sportscaster too in Iowa, wasn't he, Steve?
Oh, yeah. And in fact, one of the things early on that he was known for is because with baseball in particular, you did, if you were doing games for a team that was on the road, it was too expensive in those days to make the road trip. So you did recreations. And a lot of minor league baseball was done this way, where you did recreations. You would get on the Western Union ticker, you would get and I don't know how many people know what Western Union is today, but but when you would get it on the telegraph, and it would tell you either it would largely, what it would tell you was what was the outcome of that at bat. Was it a single to right, or was it a fly out? And so it was up to you, and you had the sound effects of a crowd that you were bringing in, and also you did things where you would sometimes have a delay in getting the information from the ticker, and that delay could be an extended period of time. And there was a legendary story that at one time Ronald Reagan had about an 8-minute delay between at-bats on getting the final outcome on what happened. And so he had the batter foul off 15 pitches before.
Oh, Lord. Well, they even created their guys that dropped bats and did everything besides their normal crowd noise and stuff. A good example of that, and it really happened in Bull Durham. It wasn't necessarily that team, but one of the minor league teams in North Carolina, when their broadcaster was recreating, would drop bats to make it sound like the crack of the bat and do all kinds. He'd even chew tobacco and spit to make it sound like a player had spit tobacco there in the dugout close to the broadcast.
It was the great Dennis James, who was, again, also another game show host, but also an announcer and was an MC of a lot of different things. And Dennis James was the first person who did professional wrestling on network television back when it was a staple in the late 40s and early 50s. And he was known for doing things like this. He would say, "All right, mother," he would address the audience and say, "Okay, mother." And he'd say, "Okay, mother, this is a chicken wing." And he would snap a chicken bone on the air just so it would add to the effects of everything.
Steve, bless you. I had forgotten about that.
Steve, let me ask you a question. When did you know you wanted to be involved in, we'll say, the play-by-play, and on top of that, the opportunity to teach? You've put a lot of young people in the broadcast world. When did you know you wanted to be a teacher, and when did you want to be a participant in the games of basketball that you've done so well?
Oh my goodness! I tell you, Bill, it was really a fluke that I ended up doing union basketball. I started doing sports radio back in 1968 by making a pest of myself. I literally just begged for an opportunity to do something in sports. I was about to go into the 10th grade, and I was begging to do something in sports at my local radio station in Waycross, Georgia. And to fast forward the story, they finally got so tired of it that I was told, "Okay, there's a high school baseball game today. Why don't you go over there and call us in a report of maybe 30, 45 seconds, and we'll play it if we like it. We'll play it on the 6 o'clock news," which, local radio stations used to do a conventional 6 o'clock newscast in those days. And so I did, and I called it in, and they said, "This is not bad." And so they played it. And then little by little, I began doing that on a regular basis at absolutely no cost to the station because they weren't going to pay me for it. and then by the time I was a junior in high school, and we had a very, very competitive girls team, and I became the radio voice of them. And so it was really in my high school years that I began doing that. And while I was in college, I would do a number of things where it would be particularly tournaments that would be from all around our region. And I would do all of those that I possibly could because it was really picking up a lot of extra spending money. But the other part of it, you asked the question, when did I know I wanted to teach? I was in television news for almost 20 years as an active practitioner, and I ultimately just felt a calling to be able to teach. I didn't want to teach just anywhere. I was really hoping to be at a Christian university. And I felt very fortunate when the opportunity came along at Union. And so for me, the real joy of seeing these young people, and in more recent years, people like Alex Northcutt and Logan Whaley that were part of the Union broadcast team for 2 years, seeing them succeed in local television sports. There's nothing any better than that for somebody who is a teacher, to get an opportunity to see your students progress and move along. This past week, we had a young woman who won her 5th Mid-South Emmy Award for her work with Channel 5 in Nashville as a producer. And so we went back and did some research and found out that we'd had 12 students out of the Union program that have won Emmys. So it's been a real joy to see them succeed. I tell all of them that have won Emmys, I said, you have outpointed the teacher in this case, because I was nominated twice and lost both times.
I tell you what, Steve, we were talking to Dave McCulley a few moments ago, and about this time of the year, does it still tug at your heart thinking about the old days at Oman Arena?
Oh, it does, Jimmy, because you think about, there was something about getting into the arena at 8 o'clock in the morning, which we often did for 14 of the years the tournament was here. My students and I had we had the play-by-play and the rights to the pay-per-view of the tournament. And so each game was on a subscription basis available to people. And so anyway, long story short, out of that, there was something about the flavor of getting down to the arena at 8 o'clock in the morning, and suddenly you start hearing those pep songs that are being played, and there was just a flavor and a texture. It was like if you go to the fair, there's a feeling like that. If you walk into church on Sunday morning, there's a solemnity to that. But when you would go down to Oman Arena, there was just an anticipation, and you felt so fortunate that you were going to be there one solid week, but particularly those first 3 days, Jimmy, when you were there for 24 games.
Yeah.
And knowing that you were going to see the ultimate, that in some of those games you were going to see the ultimate, where something would happen late in the game that would really bring on the legendary thrill of victory or agony of defeat, and it would be so painful to see some of those teams have to go home in those situations. But yeah, I do miss that, because I thought that it was something unique for Jackson, Tennessee, and to have that tournament for 22 years was just amazing.
I'll tell you what, one thing that got me, on Wednesday night, they would have, they would spell out NAIA on the court. Talked to several young ladies that, hey, they'd already been eliminated from the tournament, but they would stay around just to spell out that NAIA. And you talk about memories as far as we broadcasters, but that had to be make some great memories for no telling how many thousands of young ladies to know that they played in the national tournament.
Oh, my goodness, yes. And you think about some of the games that we had that were just they were. I don't care whether you're talking about NAIA basketball. This was the cream of the crop at that level of play, and I mean, some of those young women could have played Division I basketball. A few of them did because they transferred into NAIA schools. But I think also one of the things that was really neat about it is that this was a tournament that was filled with a lot of schools that had a Christian mission. And whereas, it can get a little bit aggressive on the floor. I think about I emceed the banquet beforehand one year when Steve Bowers could not be there. And and one of the things I took away from that is that all of the West Coast teams all cheered for each other when they were introduced. And it was something that was really important to them to build that kind of sportsmanship. So I took away so many memories from that tournament. Needless to say, to see Mark Campbell win 4 of those tournaments later on as we were getting down the road to the end of it here, and then for David Blackstock to win his first one. And then, of course, when Lambeth won, and that was, I've been asked by so many people over the years, was it hard for you to call that shot that Dee Pryor hit that was the heartbreaker for Union and the ultimate victory for Lambeth that year? And I said, the only thing I thought about was that ball seemed to hang up in the air longer than a punt.
Yes, you and Dave both had opposite emotions on that one because he was making the Lambeth call in that game.
Yeah.
Actually, what I did, Joe, is that I let fly with the biggest yes that you possibly could, because when that ball was in the air, I'm thinking, okay, this is Union versus Lambeth. But when we were at the NAIA tournament, we were expected to do a neutral call. And yes. I said, I'm saying to myself, when that thing was up as high as D put that thing up, and I'm saying, I have got to let this fly as much as it is Union. And so I honestly tried to make that as an enthusiastic call at that point. But, you have so many memories like that you take away. And unfortunately, we'll never see those again with the loss of that tournament 11 years ago.
Yeah,
12 years ago.
I had one game in particular. Coach Joe and I were sitting up, instead of sitting press side, we were sitting up in the bleachers. When Union played, I think it was Oklahoma Baptist, I guess Jessica Henson, one of her years there, and that game went to one overtime or 2 overtimes. That is the loudest I've ever heard Omen in my life.
That was actually a little bit before, Jessica. If I remember correctly, I think this was the game that David Blackstock, it was the year that he won his NAIA national championship. Ullman was literally packed to the rafters, and it was like Rupp Arena that night. It was absolutely – I could not tell you. I was having to scream over my headphones to be able to call that one because it was just enormous in there. And there were people who were not – there were people who were there that were Lambeth supporters who showed up, and they were screaming their heads off for Union. But the thing I remember about that is that in the first half, Union is down by 18.
Yeah.
And it looked as though it was going to be hopeless and it was going to be another year of go home early. And that second half, the enormous comeback, and you're talking about different people, Rose Anoon and Meg Griffin, and you talk about one by one, the many that were so responsible for that, Ginger Bryant, so many of them that had baskets in that second half comeback. It was a comeback like one I had never seen for a Union team, and frankly, few teams at all. And then to send that thing into double overtime and ending up winning it 99-92. At the end of it, it was not the 7 points does not represent how close that was. I think what had happened was that Oklahoma Baptist was out of gas.
If you wonder what that was, my phone is here on the table because some people, Steve, haven't learned the the text line, and I've got to. Well, they think they can get in on my phone, and they send me text on it, and it's an unusual thing. Steve, we're running down on time. Can you finish that? But I've got a text, and you and I, and folks, you can not believe me, but Steve will back it up. We were going to let him talk about USJ, and we want you. They want to know how you like doing USJ basketball. But go ahead and finish your story, and then I'm going to let you jump just straight into broadcasting high school basketball at USJ.
I was actually really at the end of it. That was just an amazing night. But as far as USJ is concerned, I had a blast this year going back to my roots and doing high school basketball, which I did for 7 years when I first started doing all of this. I think the most difficult thing in adjusting to it after so many years of college basketball is not having the shot clock there. And that's one thing that Jeff Jones in his interview with you last week said, that he said, I really hope we get a shot clock in here. And I've heard a number of coaches this past week, including Coach K, on his weekly show, talking about how he wishes that high school would adopt the shot clock so that these young people can be prepared for the next level. And this week we saw that the TSSAA is at least having some serious discussions about this and maybe doing some things in an experimental fashion with that. But just to fast forward, because I know you got to go on, Joe, the USJ teams were just so much fun to call because I could always tell those teams liked each other personally. And I found out from both coaches that they did a lot of things off the court together. The girls team, of course, you've got somebody who may be one of the greatest high school players at her age we've ever seen in Halen Ayers. And then Ava Barham was tremendous in the post, being able to get behind defenders and get layups. And then you looked it over at the guys, and so many of these guys particularly, and they went down, and when they went to Lausanne, and a lot of people thought that this was going to be a runaway for Lausanne. Those guys played their hearts out and only lost it by 4 in their final tournament game this year. It was really an amazing season that they had. And Jeff, I thought one of the great things I saw about that this season was Jeff got so much out of his talent. And he's got some good foundation to come back next year with. But the experience for me was wonderful because I was treated so well by the people there, and also because it was a good brand of basketball. Now, if we can just get a shot clock in high school basketball.
Yeah, and we're fighting upstream on that, Steve, because only California, New York, Washington, Massachusetts, Maryland, Rhode Island, North Dakota, and South Dakota are the only ones I know of using a shot clock in girls and boys basketball. And actually, Maryland has done away. They still have the shot clock in girls, but quit using it in boys.
Yeah, but you look back at what it took to get the 3-on-3 girls basketball down to playing full court. It took Pat Head Summit to basically tell the TSSAA, look, you got to do away with this 6-on-6 basketball, or these young ladies will not be able to go to the next level.
Hey, Jimmy, I'm old enough that I called games that were 3-on-3, and then in Georgia for 4 years we went as a transition. We went to what was called the roving forward, where you had 2 guards and 2 forwards that stayed permanently on each side of the court, and then you had 2 players that roved both sides of the court. It got very, very confusing to a lot of people, and so finally after 4 years they went to 5-girl basketball in the late 1970s. But it's a slow transition. It's like anything that involved major change. The other thing that I want to see men's college basketball go to the quarters. That is in the NCAA. That is the only level of basketball that does not play by quarters. And I think that it is time now. We've seen when the women went to the quarters a few years back, we have seen the game speed up. And you don't have nearly as many constant delays in the games. It is pastime for men to adopt, and Coach K is another one who's an advocate for that. It is pastime for men's college basketball to go to a quarter system rather than the 2 20-minute halves.
And Steve, just a quick comment, because I am already over time and I've got to get that commercial break in. I'm going to make you promise you'll come back with us.
Oh, you bet.
We have had fun. Anything you want to say to the fans before we go to commercial break?
Hey, just I enjoy seeing you when we're at the games, and I hope that'll continue this spring when we're out at the USJ softball and baseball games.
Absolutely, Steve, one of the Worthy Road broadcasters, but he is an elite broadcaster himself. Steve, thank you for the time, and like I said, we will definitely do this again.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. There he is, Steve Beverly. We're going to take a time out, and what you've been waiting for, Johnny Jones will be with us on the Lightning Strike Sports Show.
We realize you have a busy lifestyle, and at the Bank of Jackson, we're here to help you fulfill all of your financial needs, personal and business loans, mortgages, online banking and bill pay, and so much more. Serving the Jackson area for 25 years. The Bank of Jackson, your down-home community bank. You belong here. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Carlac Prestige is not your typical used car dealer. We have everything from a Porsche to this, and lots more. We inspect and repair all our vehicles. Ask us to prove it. We will.
Carlac Prestige, Van Drive, Jackson.
Great American Sports. Make sports an addiction. Located at 125B Old Hickory Boulevard, East in Jackson. We specialize in teen sports for youth leagues, schools, and churches. We can embroider and screen print team uniforms. We also have sports equipment, Under Armour and Adidas clothing, and anything else you need for your teen sports. You can email or call us for all your teen sports needs. Great American Sports. Make sports an addiction.
And we are temporarily back. Gary, we're going to have to extend and take another timeout for just a moment.
Home furnishings, appliances, bedding, and so much more. Kaufman's. At the Bypass and Oil Well Road in Jackson. Home furnishings for every room in your home. Custom upholstery options too, with professional advice. Major appliances from America's top name brands. Mattresses and bedding accessories. Outdoor living and grilling too. And our fully stocked warehouse helps prevent supply chain delays. Kaufman's, for your life.
Do you want your smile to say it all? At Elite Dental Care, we'll make you and your family feel comfortable and secure with a variety of services and state-of-the-art care. We offer sedation dentistry that will make your time in the dental chair comfortable and relaxed. Come by and see our newly renovated and expanded office in Jackson, or one of our other convenient locations in Trenton or Dyersburg. Trust your smile with Elite Dental Care, and let your smile say it all.
Looking for a new and exciting career? At Jackson State Community College, we offer nationally recognized, top-rated programs designed to greenlight your career for success. With courses available in the health sciences, nursing, computer technology, and much more, your next step towards a career starts here at Jackson State. Looking for a new and exciting career? At Jackson State Community College, we offer nationally recognized, top-rated programs designed to greenlight your career for success. With courses available in the health sciences, nursing, computer technology, and much more, your next step towards a career starts here at Jackson State. Learn how Jackson State Community College can greenlight your future at greenlightyourfuture.com.
We are back, and a little banking being taken care of, and we appreciate that last text for Steve. Remind you that Red Hooks, if you'll mention the Lightning Strikes Sports Show and BallGame Blitz, they've got a free gift for you there at Red Hooks on the corner of Parkway and, of course, the bypass. And I can personally vouch for the food. And I used to work with one of the great food critics here in Jackson. There's nothing to be critical. That's just great food, and eat there frequently. Like I said, my friend Joe Gracie eats there. My wife would eat there 2 times a day if she could get away with it, but sometimes she's got duties at home and stuff. Gentlemen, we got a text we probably need to take care of. Jimmy's going to give you those scores again. Now, we're still going to try to have Johnny Jones, but he was speaking with his banker, and so we've got to honor that, and that went a little long for him. Just thinking of the old Memphis Tiger basketball games at Freedom Hall, where the Tigers got up about 25-0 on Louisville, and at the beginning of the game, Sweet, I think I have that on videotape, and Cindy, if you do, I would love to see that. Well, there were some battles. You've been part of them between Denny Crum, and even before that, John Dromo was their coach. Louisville and Memphis didn't like each other.
You know, Joe, as a freshman, my father wanted to bring his barber and some church members, so I went into the Ticketmaster. His name was J.W. Patrick, chewing on a cigar. Said, Coach, I need some tickets. You sold out. How many do you need, son? I said, how about 6? I don't know if I had enough money in the bank to clear it, but I gave him a check anyway. So my dad, the tickets were right behind the Louisville bench, and I guess I didn't understand Denny Crum and the rolled-up program. So I started hollering at him, and he had bodyguards. All of them did, and I hollered just enough to where the bodyguard finally came behind my seat, and I wasn't real big, but sizable, and I got really quiet, Joe. I learned that the power coaches, Coach K, as Steve Beverly talked about, and Denny Crum, no, they didn't like each other. And I think Houston, other than wanting to beat number 1, I don't know that there's that we've had football battles with them.
Yeah.
But on a basketball court, I don't know if they're really a rival. And I did want to mention Steve Aldridge and what Steve Beverly, because Steve Aldridge is one of those soldiers of journalism that was the SID at Union, worked his way up, a father figure for his 2 children, and now he's associate AD. So I want to salute Steve Aldridge. He is one of those gentlemen, if you ever know him, he's in the same mode as Steve Beverly, and that is that their work is impeccable. And you got sub-state games, big ones today,
yes,
don't
we
you?
do.
Absolutely.
Girls play tonight. The Southside Lady Hawks at 30-0 host Murfreesboro Central. McKenzie hosts Huntland. Martin Westview, they sit at 29-1. They host Summertown. Peabody goes to Middle College in Memphis. Riverside goes to Memphis Hillcrest. Dyer County will be at Fayette Ware. Memphis Manassas, not Molasses, Manassas.
As Robert George said one time.
They will be at Scotts Hill, and Melrose will be at Dyersburg. And then boys action on Monday night. Union City will be at Giles County. South Gibson will go to MLK Prep in Memphis. Murfreesboro Central will be at Chester County. Fairview will be at Gibson County. Moore County will be at McKenzie. Fayette Ware goes to the Tomcats. Haywood County. B.T. Washington out of Memphis goes to Middleton. Humboldt will be in Memphis at MASC. Bolivar takes on Power Center out of Memphis, and Ripley and Ridgeway. You were talking Memphis basketball. I remember Jackson's own, the late John Kilser, his senior day, last game of the year, they beat Louisville in the old Mid-South Coliseum.
Yes, they did.
You know, it's
remember
funny.
them in Louisville, and this goes to Billy Scribner too. The Missouri Valley Conference, then the Metro Conference, but Billy was an official in the Missouri
Yeah,
Valley.
he said one of the stories, and I will say this, Jimmy. I was responsible for connecting John Kilser to Bill Cook. I brought him into South Hall. They became buddies. There's always been – he was an incredible writer and song producer and et cetera. But the question was always posed is, would he have been better at Union or Lambeth? Because he was a little bit slow, but an incredible person. Billy Scribner told me himself that the fans of Memphis would take pennies, they would be held by a tweezer and a cigarette lighter, and they would heat the pennies till they were extremely hot and then throw them at the officials.
I remember one basketball game when John was at JCM, 2 people in the stands that night. Bill Cook and Wayne Yates.
Wayne Yates
came to Jackson to recruit.
They asked Bill Cook one time. He was in my English class. They asked him, said, Bill, I want to know, your mom's a single mom. How do you drive a Corvette? And he because he stuttered, and he said, well, I have 2 paper routes. We never could figure out they would be really healthy paper routes, I would think. But those are the time when we had incredible. Ted Turnipseed was the manager from Lexington.
Yeah.
You had, you had the gentleman from Ripley, Larry Trosper.
Yeah.
He was kind of a betweener, about 6'3", but then I would eat supper with Larry Keenan. What an incredible, and Little Tubby and Ronnie Robertson, and just great. And they brought racial harmony to a city that needed it at the time.
They saved Memphis, Tennessee.
They did, Joe. If there's one person that did, it would have been that crew, because they saw no color. They saw a round ball, and the Mid-South Coliseum was a rocking place that very seldom have I experienced what inside. Now, tomorrow you'll find the FedEx Forum will have that same synergy that the Mid-South Coliseum
It will
had.
be rocking. It's a good place. I sit on the bench for the Union when we beat them, but, 2 of our players on that team that beat University of Memphis twice was Big Ed Brawley, who was signed originally from Sidney Lanier High School in Alabama with the Tigers and actually played on their freshman team. And Gunnar Garrett, Darryl Garrett, who could
left-hand.
shoot. Yeah, no, he was right-handed.
Yeah, but he had that
shot
jump
the
shot.
most unorthodox shot that you ever saw.
He's deceased now, isn't he?
He is deceased. He and Curry Todd, the late state legislator and Memphis officer, was they won a state championship for Bill Bear McLean out of McNairy County. Now, we got a question here on the text line that wanted to know about, and this, I believe, came from a guy that's going to be a guest sometime on the show, David Warmbrode. He wants to know, what about boys volleyball as a new TSSAA sport? I think it should happen because they've already added lacrosse, and you heard Matthew Gillespie say they will eventually add girls flag football.
Well, let me say this. My daughter, my granddaughter, Lily Claire, tried out and made the team on field hockey. I'm trying to understand what field hockey is. Is it lacrosse without a basket?
It's kind of like lacrosse.
But,
only you play with the sticks and stuff.
But, Joe, here's my comment back. And I understand adding. Billy Scrivener said the 2 things to really want to be officials is a softball with an All-American pitcher on girls' side.
Yeah.
The game's through in, hour and 5 minutes?
Yeah, you want to work like at Jackson Christian.
Absolutely.
Maggie Richardson. You're not going to work but about an hour and 5 minutes,
I mean,
maybe an hour 15.
They foul a ball, and it feels like a home run.
Yeah.
Okay? But then the other thing I'm saying, how are they going to find enough officials? I mean, the gentleman was calling and talking about a 70-year-old that's 2 stations away from making a call. I mean, he's at the free throw line. They're running 3/4 of the way. I don't know what's going to happen, Joe, because they're not getting the numbers of officials to officiate the games that they've got.
Well, here's one that says, great question. I just let David know that they say it's not fair that girls have that. That used to be the equivalent balancing sport for Title IX. Girls volleyball and football were played. But now you're adding girls sports and you're balanced in every other place. So actually the girls are a little ahead in the TSSAA, if my count is right, with the lacrosse. So the boys are going to need another sport coming up here.
Joe, is it never ending? I mean, this, you're one up on me. I'm one up on you. One up on, I don't understand. I mean, let's just enjoy the games that we have, just like shot clocks.
Let's get enough officials.
Well, I mean, you're talking about shot clocks, and I understand these people. Yeah. He said Coach K and all that. Who's going to pay for all this?
That's the problem. We don't have enough. Plus, you usually, unless somebody volunteers, you got to play a clock operator. I like the 30-second clock. I don't like the headaches it brings with it. Actually, in high school, 35 seconds would be a much better clock. But how are you going to pay for it? Remember, the first years of women's basketball, there were actually schools that timed it on a stopwatch, and they had to holler the time out.
Is it mandated in high school football that you had the shot clock in the end zones? I'm just trying to see if we have any.
No, I think you can still get away with it.
That's what I thought.
They would prefer that you have them.
I understand that, Joe, but it's not.
But the official's still counting on you.
Yes.
That's just like the early days that the smaller schools in college women's basketball, when it was AIAW and association like that before the NCAA took it over, they were using a shot clock one time, but they kept it on an actual stopwatch over on the side.
Well, I do want to salute Trey Smith for us to have a player from our community. We've had a lot of great players. I mentioned Al Wilson, what an incredible athlete. I saw a picture of him, and John Lindsay's he's bringing the Rocket to Meridian Baptist
Church.
Yes,
he is.
And,
We've got that's in April, I believe.
Yeah, and they've got some incredible gifts. I mean, they've got Lawrence Taylor's signature things. They've got a football autograph by the late coach of Mississippi State. We need to get John on and talk about it. They've about sold out, I think, a lot of the tickets, but they've got a Lou Brock baseball autograph. Yep. So just an incredible event. Who would think that the Rocket would come to Jackson, Tennessee?
You're right about that, but he will be here. And, of course, Bud's at the camp, and we may need to take one more time out because I had to double up a while ago on it. We appreciate all the callers. It doesn't look like Johnny Jones is going to get finished. He did not anticipate the banking business going a little longer than he thought it would, and we will reschedule Johnny unless he does call in. We could go overtime, but we need to take a time out, and I'm going to see if we can get us a report from the football camp. Let's take that time out on the Lightning Strike Sports Show.
King Jewelers is not your typical run-of-the-mill jewelry store. Grover is a certified jeweler with 35 years experience. This isn't just a jewelry store. It's an iconic symbol of love. How far would you go for love? King Jewelers, 16B Conrad Drive, Jackson.
The most important benefit when you buy from Jones Chevrolet at Three-Way? Peace of mind. Jones Chevrolet's Warranty Forever comes with every qualifying new and pre-owned vehicle. Powertrain coverage for as long as you own your vehicle. Find out more at Jones Chevrolet in Three-Way. Championship DNA. That's what you find at Jones Chevrolet at Three-Way. A full line of new Chevrolets plus West Tennessee's largest used car inventory. State-of-the-art service work and pre-approved auto loans online at JonesChevroletHumboldt.com. Shop with a winner. Jones Chevrolet at Three-Way.
The news says Gen Z is struggling. I've got news for them.
I wait tables, but last week I built a field hospital. I put out a forest fire. I stopped 1,000 attackers.
And a natural disaster.
I've saved lives and led a team on patrol.
I serve.
While I go to school full-time. While I work full-time.
The greater the challenge, the stronger we become.
We are back here on the Lightning Strike Sports Show. We'll be going to Bud Young in just a minute. We apologize. Johnny Jones has promised he will be on with us again. Sometimes when you're at a bank and you're doing banking, it takes a little longer than anticipated. He thought he'd be through by this time. But we went back to the camp, and also I'm going to remind you, and Bud, I know you're listening now, you may know these two gentlemen. Carol Graham and Albert Wolf Jr. used to do the McNary Bobcat basketball when Neil Walker, and of course Neil Walker passed away earlier in the week, and we hate to hear that.
I played against him. I know Neil Walker.
Yes, you do. Neil Walker, Neil Skywalker. And we actually ran Red Horton's offense with my girls, and Angela Godwin played Neil Walker at approximately the same time Neil played the position for the girls. And then, of course, Neil had a sister, Angela Walker, and we hate that he passed away.
Yeah, that's devastating. I know Neil Walker well in his playing days at McNair Central. He was good for 40 points every game.
Just about it. And I know you used to listen to WXOQ 105, not just for ball games, but for other content. But Albert Wolf is the father of Scotty Wolf, who he claims his claim to fame is he sat on the bench for McNary a bunch. And his older brother now played with Neil and them some.
Neil had another brother that was a good player. I think Mike Walker, I believe he.
Yeah, that was the one. That's the one that's older, and he played with Scotty's brother.
Yeah, and that was that. I hate to hear that about Neil because he was quiet, but you put a basketball in his hands, he'd make action. He was a ball player.
I heard a horn in the background. Can you tell me what that horn represented, Neil, from your standpoint?
I ain't got that's these kids. This is the year of 2023. Kids have got to have music in this camp, I guess.
Yeah, who have you met today, Bud? I know you've talked to Chris Treese and Jabari.
And Tony Brown, wide receiver, Cedric Houston, Justin Hunter is here, Spraglin, offensive lineman. Let's see. Then Treese, Trail Bean and his camp over in Selmer's over here. I got to meet him. And then this Humboldt, their football coach is over here. And he's got a son that's a sophomore, 6'8", about 330. And he's playing basketball against Mace, they said Monday night. But that boy looks like he could get an NFL job right now.
Yeah, he's well known in the recruiting rounds.
Yeah, you ain't lying.
Yes, he is. Bud, quick report on Latrell Bumpus. What have you heard out of Latrell lately?
Well, I think he's still practicing. I mean, training. Still hoping he'd get a free agent contract or get drafted. Probably going to be a free agent contract. But, there's 3 or 4 opportunities for a man to play now. You got 2 or 3 different leagues.
Well, I know.
The XFL, USFL, and then the NFL, Canadian football. And I think he can carry on and play one of them.
Well, we've had a couple of young men, including Condridge Holloway, go and be superstars in that Canadian football league.
Yeah, and Condridge was an outstanding athlete altogether, baseball and he went in the Baseball Hall of Fame this last month or so.
Yeah,
but
any other things about the camp or UT that you want to pass on to the fans? And we'll between the two of us, we'll get Johnny back on because he's worth the price of admission to definitely hear.
Good. He is. Well, this camp, I tell you what, I appreciate the people of Jackson coming down supporting this. These people come from everywhere. There's people from Savannah. Got people from Humboldt. Got people here from Perry County. There's a few from Nashville. There's a lot of people come down here to this camp today, and I think it's a good thing for these kids to get to meet football legends and get a lot of good training that they're not going to just get anywhere. I mean, I appreciate all what high school coaches do, but these people here, like most of these guys, have been in the NFL.
Absolutely.
And it's a really good thing for them. And it's a wonderful day for this camp. They couldn't pick a better day. You wouldn't believe what we had yesterday, what we got today, what the difference is in it. But we appreciate the coach helping out here from Jackson Christian. Palmer said his name.
Darby Palmer and his staff are usually there. Darby's one of the nicest young men. He'll do anything you ask him to do.
Yeah, they did, and they give him a standing ovation and all the players. And had some of the people didn't get to come today because of the weather. They couldn't get in. Like I couldn't have come last night because they didn't have electricity in Savannah.
Well, there's still trees on roads too. I've been informed.
Everywhere. There's trees in Savannah. They just get up as they can. Brute Branch on the way to Alabama on Highway 69. They still places there ain't got power.
Wow. Well, that is great. Bud, I know you're going to dig up some good stuff for next week when you call in, and then you and I will get together and we'll work on some of these interviews. We'll get Johnny rescheduled. That sound like a winner?
Yeah, it is. And if people want to, I might probably have Big Al be on next week if you're interested in him.
Oh, that'll be good because some people didn't get the word that we were going to have Johnny instead of Albert, and Albert, if he can be with us, we will have him next week.
Yeah, he had a charity thing he had to do today. He couldn't come today.
Well, he's changed. He's a born-again Christian, isn't he?
The good man's ever made. He's not the same man I know in Knoxville.
That's
right.
A
monster. He was a monster on the defense up there at Knoxville. He still can be a monster, but he's a godly man now and one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life.
Well, we're proud of the transformation he's made.
Yes, sir.
Bud, thank you for your contributions today. Good report from the camp there, and people can hear the kids in the background, but we appreciate it, and we're going to wrap the show up here in about 2 minutes.
And thank y'all. We had a good time today. We'll be back with you next Saturday morning, 9 o'clock.
Sounds like a winner. There he is, straight from Jackson Christian's camp, the UT legends out there. And we hope everybody made it through as safe as they could. Hopefully your property's not damaged a whole lot. Bill, it's your turn for a final comment.
Well, I appreciate the show. Appreciate the opportunity, I think, Joe, because these people, as you listen to Steve Beverly, everybody's got a story.
Yes.
Coach Holloway does, Jimmy does, I do. And to those listeners, I hope you when you're out there, tell Paul what a great show that Lightning Strikes and BallGame Blitz, because we do have the best audio-visual presentation in the South, and want to let people know it.
And we're going to add to it. Jimmy?
Yeah, like I said, I enjoy doing this, and I learn something every week, and then I get reminded of some memories just about the past. I mean, a lot of people say, well, the past is the past. No, if we don't remember what happened in the past, who's gonna preserve it out there?
That's right. And those who do not learn history are doomed to repeat it. Only you might be repeating bad history if you don't learn it. We have a lot of good history here. First of all, I want to thank all the listeners, and we've got basically 3 new sponsors. Fleet Feet, and I guarantee you, they don't just take care of your feet, and they've got some great shoes for running, anything like that. There are a lot of people that wear Fleet Feet shoes to work and stuff because, at the banquet the other night at Jackson Christian, we had some dressed-up people, and I'm talking about adults, but they had you cannot tell the difference in the fancy running shoes and the fancy Gucci shoes and stuff like that, and they look that good. But they've got more than that at Fleet Feet.
What about Red Hook?
Okay, I'm going to tell you about that. Let me finish with Fleet Feet. They can actually get you jogging suits, anything you need to run, to train, they've got it. They can actually help. If you're having foot problems, they can fix that. Now, Red Hooks, wow. Right there on the corner of Parkway and the bypass. And like I said, I'm most familiar because I am a shrimp nut. They can fix it several different ways. They got more than that. And they also have those scallops that I told you, Joe Gracie, and he'd tell you if they were bad. He loves them. He will drive down from Big Sandy, come by and visit us, and take us, or we'll take him to Red Hooks and go there. Now, here's what the BallGame Blitz, the Lightning Strike Sports Show, is doing for you with Red Hooks, but it's really Red Hooks that gets all the credit. Hey, it's a unique atmosphere on the inside, too. You'll love it. You will love it on the inside. Plenty of parking. But if you will mention the BallGame Blitz and Lightning Strike Sports Show to them, you have to tell it to them, they have a free gift for you. You don't want to miss that. And I'm going to tell you what, one of the best kept secrets in Jackson is Red Hooks. You better go there if you want good seafood. No, let me rephrase that. It's kind of like somebody makes All-American and it makes it sound like the first team All-American is what you are, and you be very. This is first team All-American food at its best. And like I said, one of the food critics who really knows food here in Jackson, I've learned a lot from him, and he also thinks that Red Hook's food is great. Can't mention him because he works for a rival, and but it is one of those things. Please go by Red Hooks. You'll love it. You won't be sorry. You'll be texting me. What a great. Cindy D, first trivia winner.
Yes.
And Cindy, I know you're listening. We will get hold of you, and we will get your certificate to you by Wednesday at the latest. We'll deliver and stuff on different. You go by, and the third sponsor I was telling you about, the Pig House, they're going to have all kinds of good stuff for you. And Bill and I and Jimmy will get that taken care of. Folks, we've had a great time. Gary has done a wonderful job. It's not easy because our show has to have some flexibility, yet you have to hit those timeouts at certain times. We appreciate Paul, and he's walked back and forth and helped with all kinds of things. Plus, he's got a UT shirt on. I know that Sean Sparks and Jimmy are very thankful for that. Bill's got Jackson Eagles football shirt on, and I've got my Worthy Road Studios BallGame Blitz shirt. And the hands are out here like I'm absorbing the rays of energy from the earth. Maybe I'm too much Star Wars, but here it is, directed by Gary Lockhart, show host, Coach Joe Holloway, Jimmy Butler, Big Blue Bill Hamilton, executive producer Paul Schultze, and we appreciate you, and it's time for us to say this is a copyrighted broadcast. Any rebroadcast, retransmission, or further use of this show without the express written consent of Worthy Road Studios, the BallGame Blitz, is prohibited. Thanks for your time this time. Till next time, good day, all.